Hello friends, Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here. Today I'm going to be making a fall journal using some Beebeecraft trim that I got from them as part of a collaboration that we're doing. And I thought it might be fun to try and think of something different to do with this trim, and so I came up with this journal. So if you'll join me, I will show you how it all came together. Let's go. All right, so I'm starting with this beautiful trim that is 2.5 inches wide, and it has some gorgeous fall colors on there. So brown and gold and a little bit of cream there. And I thought it would be really fun to make a little fall journal using this, a cover with the trim here. So I went and grabbed a couple of scrap pieces of fabric from a fabric book, so fabric sample book, and I thought these two colors really looked great with this, so I thought this would be where I would start the cover. So these pieces are, I had to cut them out of the book, so they're just about 8 inches wide and a little over 6 inches tall. So I think that'll be a good start for our cover if I make it about that size, 8 by 5.5 or so. So what I'm going to do, or what I did, was I took some trim and I cut just a bunch of smaller pieces and one long piece. So I have 6 small pieces, and these small pieces I thought I would use to sort of make stripes along the cover here, something like this. And I'll probably, when I put these on, I think I'm going to let them hang over just a bit so that I have something to turn under if I want to, make my cover just a little bit longer. And then I thought, we might as well continue this with and going on the back. Now you could have done strips that were just this long. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do here. So you could, kind of do this any way you want. I could you can see that there's, kind of this little bit of a heart pattern here, and it does go both ways, but you can, depending on how you cut your strips, you can decide, how you want to do that. And then I cut a longer strip. So this strip's about 10 inches long to be my spine. So I'm going to leave a gap here so that, we have area to put the spine in, and I'm going to kind of have a cover that looks like this. So before I do anything here, I just kind of wanted to show you what I was starting with, but I'm just going to go grab a little piece of cardboard for our backing of our cover so that we have something to start with. Okay, I have this light, very thin piece of cardboard that I'm going to use as my base. And this piece is about 9 inches by 12 inches. And so if I want a 5.5 wide journal by about 8.5 inches tall, I need to cut this down just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, if you don't have something this big, you could use 2 pieces and just leave a gap for the spine if you wanted to, if you were only doing like one signature or something, if you wanted to. But I'm going to use a whole piece. If you use like a manila folder or something like that, that would probably work really well here as well. So I'm going to cut this down to about 11.5 inches. So I'm only going to take off about 1/2 inch here. And actually, I think I'm going to grab I have blades for cardboard that I kind of like to keep separate so that I don't dull my paper blade prematurely, I guess I should say. Okay, and then the sides too, I want to cut this down to about 8.5 so that it's not too tall. All right, so I'll put this one away again. I can do that. All right, and then we have our base ready to go. And then I'm going to turn it over this way because, well, besides that one side being really bright, if my fabric was see-through at all, I wouldn't want you to see that bright white through it. So what I'm going to do for the fabrics is decide, okay, what do I want where? So I think I want the front cover to be this kind of golden yellow because I really like it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang them off the sides a little bit of my back so that I have space to wrap these around when we're ready to do that. So I think I'm going to put these, you know, with about maybe like an inch gap here, because the spine is going to cover a lot of that. So I could even go wider if I wanted, you know, more coverage here. But you know, I think I'm just going to go with that right now. And then all I'm going to do now to make this cover is I'm going to tack glue some of this stuff down. So actually, before I do that, I'm just going to grab a pencil. So I have myself a little guideline on about where, you know, each one of these is going to go when I tack glue it down here. And I don't think I need to mark the tops, but I just wanted to mark the centers. So you see I have a nice about 1 inch overlap on the sides there. And then I'm just going to, right in the middle, put down some glue and then kind of center this right there. And we'll be sewing on this, so I don't need to do, you know, a real good job gluing here. I just want to hold it in place till I can get it to the sewing machine to do our next step here. Okay, so that's that. And then I'm going to start placing my trim pieces. Now I'm probably going to do the same thing with them and with these in terms of tack gluing them down, but I just need to decide where I want to do it. So this is going to be, the base piece is the exact size of the cover that I want. So you can see on the top and bottom, I don't have anything to fold over. So I'm definitely going to need to give myself, you know, some room to do that. So I think that if I put these about halfway on and halfway over the back, I just kind of want to see what it's going to look like. I actually think I'm going to like that, because then the stripe at the bottom and the stripe at the top will be smaller, and the stripe in the middle will be, you know, a complete stripe. So this will be another half stripe. So I think I like the way that's gonna work. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to decide, I think this one I want in the middle there. This one I'm going to do the top and bottom edges first, and I'm going to try to keep them lined up as best as I can. So as it, you know, when you look at it, if you open it up, then everything, you know, matches, meaning, all right, if I'm put this here, then I can just line the bottom of my trim up with this line on my little mat here. And then I know that I'll have enough to flip over at the end. Okay, so then to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my 3-in-1 glue here, and I'm going to just, once again, we're just tack gluing this down so that it stays in place before I am ready to sew. But I'm just going to put a little bit of glue down and just make sure it's not gloppy there. And then I'm going to line up the bottom with my grid and just lay that down in place. And like I said, if you want to, you could, you know, cut your trim to go all the way across here instead of the 2 pieces like I have. But I wasn't sure if I was going to make this more of a patchwork type of cover, but I kind of like the idea of doing these little stripes here. Okay, so same thing, I'm going to line this up at the bottom on my line, and then smooth that down there. And then I'm just going to do the same for the top there. I'm probably going to turn it around just so it's closer to me. And then the middles, I'm going to decide where I want them to go. And I was thinking that, you know, if I had kind of a similar, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to do the top and bottom first, and then we'll do the middles, because I was thinking I want it centered, but it'll be easier for me to center it if I put these other sides on first. So I'm just going to do the same thing for these edges to get my trim tacked down here. Okay, so I was having a thought, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a stripe on the front middle here, but then on the back, I'm also going to do a stripe, but I'm going to cut another piece that is longer that I don't tack all the way down, because then we can, it'll be sort of like a closure. So when it's closed, so let's just pretend this piece is on the back all the way. When it's closed, I can maybe put this around and have a snap here to hold it together. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to tack down my centerpiece on this side, and I'm going to take a piece of this. Let me find an end, possibly. I was going to say, I know it's here somewhere. I've been cutting pieces off. Okay. So now let's see, I want this one to be pretty long so that I can do a hem on this side and make sure that it's tied in here. So this is bigger than I need, I'm sure, but I want to start with something so that I don't end up with not enough. So this piece we'll use for something else. Okay, so I have this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack the back piece down, but I'm going to make sure I tack it only as far as my base cardboard. So I don't want to tack it any further than that, because I'm going to sew it down up to that end, but I'm going to leave the rest of this open so that we can pull it around and make it, you know, use it for a snap or something like that. So let me grab my glue again. We'll get this piece on, and now since I have my trim here, I'm just gonna tack glue it right on the trim itself, but I still am gonna kind of spread things around so it doesn't seep through. And then I'm just gonna eyeball the middle here. And then when I put this one down, I'll just make sure I line this up so that it is close. Now, as I said, I don't want to go past the end of my cardboard, so I have to be sure I don't go anywhere past here. So I'm just going to kind of keep that as I'm looking at it. I dropped my lid there. Get some glue on here. Wipe it down just a little bit. Make sure I don't go over that piece. And then let's line this up, top and bottom with that, and then put that down. Okay, so now you can see I have this open. I can flop it around, and I'm gonna grab my the lid to my glue here. Okay, so you can see when I fold this, now all of this will be tucked under, of course, but then I'll be able to move this up here, and we can put a snap right here on the front, or maybe even a button or something. I don't know. We'll think of something here. Okay, but before I do any of that, I need to put my spine on. And so this once again, I'm just putting enough glue to hold it down until I get it to the sewing machine. All right, so now I'm going to do some sewing, but I'm really just going to do the inside sewing. And what I mean by that is anything that's not on an outer edge. So I'm going to sew this line here, this line here, this line here, this line here, but not these two edges, and not anything over here. And then I'm going to sew these two, and then the same thing on the back, those lines, but nothing over here or nothing up at the top. Because then once we fold everything over, we'll do like a stitch around the entire outside to hold everything together. So right now I'm just going to be doing these internal stitches. I'm going to be using a zigzag stitch throughout this whole thing, and I'm going to use some brown thread, and I will go ahead and do that. And when I come back, you'll see how it looks. Okay, I'm done with the sewing, so you can see my zigzag stitches all over here, and I didn't cut off all my strings yet. A lot of times I like to leave ends, but for this, since this trim is so beautiful, I don't really want anything to distract from it on the front here. So I'm just going to cut all of my little ends off everywhere, and then I'll show you what I did for the back middle piece here. Okay, I think I got, whoops, this one I didn't get. All right, I think I got most of them. I'll make sure they're all off before we do anything else. But okay, I wanted to just show you the back here. So the back, what I did was I just took a little grease pencil there and marked my end of the cardboard there, and so I knew exactly where to go to. So I only stitched up to close to the edge there. So when we fold this over, you can see this piece can still be, you know, free. It's not going to fold over with the rest of the pieces here. And that's what I wanted. And this is the other side, just to kind of show you what the other side looks like from this. So this is where we're at, and I kind of love it. I think it's looking really cool here. So now we're going to turn the edges over and get this put down. Now, before I do that, I'm going to cut my trims all down to the same size as the fabric. Obviously not, I'm not going to cut any off this end because this is what I'm going to be turning over here. But all these little side pieces that are sticking out, I'm just going to cut them off. So that's all the same size. And actually, some of these little end pieces are probably long enough that I could, you know, use them for like a tab or something on the signatures on the inside. So I'm going to hang on to these because, you know, we don't want to waste anything if we don't have to. And actually I could even do them this way for a tag topper or something. I think that would be fun too. All right, so I'm just going to put those there for now. And then I'm going to have to, I think I'm going to grab this glue, but I need to make the hole a little bit bigger before I get started. But I'm going to be using my 3-in-1 glue again. And all I'm going to do is I think I'm going to start with, well, actually, I think I'm going to start by cutting the edges. So since these are cornered edges, I wish I could have gotten more of this paper off, but we'll see if we can make this work. I'm just going to trim the edges kind of on an angle, leaving just a little bit by the corner. So if you've seen me cover things, you've seen me probably do this 100 times. Because I do this a lot. So you just come in at one end and then you angle off the other end, leaving a little bit on the corner there. And then we should be good to go. So now I'm going to start by folding and gluing. And because this is this trim is a little bit thick as well as the side pieces, I am going to just do one side at a time and hold it down to make sure it stays down. So until we get this all folded over and sewn, you know, I don't want it to fly back open, which it's trying to do right now. All right. Let's start with one of these long edges here. Actually, that's not, I don't think I'm going to do that because this has this paper on here. I think I'm going to fold this one over first because then I'll be able to fold this one over a little bit easier, I think. So I am going to start with this side right here. And once my glue gets down here, whoa, I definitely made a bigger hole now. Oof, maybe too big. Got gloop all over the place. All right, but I might need it for this because this stuff is so thick. Okay. We'll just let that go for just a minute. See if it'll stay down. Looks like it might. And then we'll do this side. Try not to get so much glue on this time. Let's see, that is coming up a little bit. So I'm going to go grab my, actually, maybe I'll just have some big paper clips. Let's see if I can make these work without getting them stuck. All right, I may have to hold this one just for a minute with my hands until it goes down. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just hold this one in place until I'm sure the glue has grabbed, and then we'll come back and do the other sides. Okay, this is dried, and actually it was overnight that I let it dry. So our sides are secure now, which is, you know, what we wanted to be sure of. So now we're going to do the sides here. So all I'm going to do is take my glue again. Try and get any out of there. Okay, and so I'm just going to, I want to put some on the sides, just like you normally would. But then when we do the corners, you want to make sure there is a pretty good amount in the corners that we can use to make sure they are tied in well. So this one, so I'm just going to kind of smooth this out a little bit, but as I smooth to the corner, I'm going to try to get my glue up into those corners really well. Okay, so once we do that, then we're just going to pinch the corner down a little bit on either side. And all that glue is probably going to get all over you, but this is so we can cover those corners well. And then we're going to fold it up, kind of holding those little pinches in. And then I'm also going to put the paper clips on this as well, because this is what I don't want to happen. So actually, I think I'm going to grab this real quick, just like that, so that it stays while I'm working on the other side. And so we're just going to smooth this down, but then take this corner and just kind of pinch it a little around there. And I think I might need to grab another paper clip. So once we got those, actually, I can probably just hold it. All right, so I'm just going to hold this down until this is dry, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, I think we're all dry, and my main goal here, I mean, I did put a lot of glue on, but I am still going to sew around the outside edges of this because I want kind of it to have the same finished edge as our stitching on the inside. So that's all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take that over and stitch around here. And for this, I'm just going to sew right along the edge here, just like, you know, if it was folded over, but I'm just going to keep it out so that it will stay out when we're ready to put our snap on for our closure. Okay, sewing's all done. So you can see I went all around the edges here, and here is what the side piece looks like. I just continued sewing right through, but this is still loose and ready for us to use as the closure. So, and this is the inside, and now I kind of wanted to just deal with the inside a little bit. I'm going to grab my ruler here, and I have kind of my middle crease line here. I'm just going to take an embossing tool and add a couple of more creases on this just to make it a little bit easier to fold. I'm not going to do too much on the fabric itself, but I wanted to add a couple of more creases to see if I could make this fold over a little bit better than it is right now. So I'm just going to go maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch a couple times on either side of that middle crease, just so that hopefully I can get a better fold. And then when I sew my signatures in, you know, it'll kind of all lay flat together. So all right, so I think that's all I'm going to do. You can kind of see my score lines there. And this is going to give it just a little bit of help folding over. So I'm just going to sort of massage this a little bit. Actually, I probably should do it with my ruler. Just kind of find those bends there. kind of pull up my cover all around so that I have a better sort of spine in there. And I'm just going right down the line, kind of giving them all some attention there. Okay, so now we just work on these outside ones just a little bit so that I'll kind of have a little bit of a 1/2 inch spine that kind of goes right in there. So I'm just going to work on that just a little bit, and then we should be pretty good to go in terms of finishing off the cover. We'll need to do the signature, obviously. That's going to go on the inside. And then we'll have to put our snap on. And before I put anything else on the inside, I'm going to do the snap on here because I don't want it to, I want to be able to cover the back side of the snap there. Okay, everything is all dry and I'm really loving the way it looks so far. So before I go any further, I just cut a piece of scrap fabric that is about double the width of my spine. The spine itself was a 1/2 inch. If I add like, you know, 1 inch on each side or so, I just want to cover this up so that the paper that's down here won't show. So I did add some distress right there. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to add a little bit right here to the middle and a little bit on the ends, since I know about how far up it goes. You could do this right on the fabric if you wanted to. It's up to you how you would want to do this. But before you put down fabric, I always like to spread it out, because then if it seeps through the fabric, you won't see the glue lines there, and it'll dry more hidden. Okay, so I'm going to just lay this down here. And most of the edges aren't going to show at all. I mean, my tops, this top edge might show a little bit, as well as the bottom edge. And I have a torn edge there, torn fabric edge, which I love. So this will just hide all that paper. And then when we get to the point where we're ready to cover these up, we'll have a nice, you know, covered spine to go ahead and do that. All right, so now before we put any papers on, let's go ahead and do the snap. Now I do have a full tutorial on how to add a snap as a book closure. So I'm just going to kind of run through this quickly. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the receiving end of the snap here, and then we're going to measure where we want the top end of the snap, and we'll put it on here. So let's go ahead and add the snap. Okay, on the front of my journal, I'm just going to take like a grease pencil here, if I can find one. Oh, there it is. My white one. Hopefully I can see this okay, and just decide where I want my snap to be on the front of my cover. So I don't want it to be right in the middle. I don't think. I kind of want it to be a little bit over to the right hand side. So I'm thinking about right here. Now I can see now already that the grease pencil isn't really going to show, but if I'm looking at this design, I can see right at the bottom of this gold piece, there's sort of like a little hole kind of already there. So that's where I want to put my snap. So I'm going to use my Crop-A-Dile here to punch the holes that I need for the snap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my 1/8 of an inch hole punch here. And then I'm going to line this up right where I said that I saw that hole. And I'm just going to punch through the cover there. So now let's see. Sometimes when you punch through fabric, you have some strings left over. I don't want to pull them too much because I don't want anything to tear beyond that hole. So I think we're good to go there. And then I have my snap pieces. So here's my bottom 2 pieces for my snap. So I have a flat end that has a little thing poking out of it. And then I have this piece here, which is actually the receiving end of the snap. So that's what I'm going to put on this side. So first I take the flat piece with the little stem on it, and I'm going to put that through the back side here. So that's going to come through there. And then I'm going to put this piece on top, and then we'll secure that in place. So I'm going to use my snap tools to do that, and I'm going to use this side of the snap tool. I'm going to try to center this right on there, which that may take me a minute to do, but I'm going to center that flat piece right on here. And then I'm going to use this little tool after I put this down with my hammer to hammer this really hard in place. And then what that will do is it will secure this top piece onto there. So I'm going to turn off the sound so you don't have to listen to me hammer, but that's what I'm going to do. Okay, now that that's in place, it's all set and ready to go. So we can, when we put our inside papers in, this will be covered up, which is what we wanted there. But the snap piece is right on there. So now what we want to do is we want to figure out where we want this to go on the front. And so obviously we need it to match up. And what I was thinking was, I thought it would be nice to have this folded over in such a way that it like just adds a little bit of thickness to the band itself. So I'm going to cut a little bit of this off, not too much, because I want to keep enough for me to fold it over. So I have enough room here. And actually I think I need it even shorter than this. So I'm going to try to judge where this should go. And of course I want to leave a little bit of room so that when I sew my signature in, and if I add, you know, anything to this, that I have a little bit of room there. I don't want to go crazy with the amount of space I leave, but a little bit would be nice. So I think that this is looking like probably where I want it to be. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here and just kind of crease it down. And then what I'm going to do is I went and grabbed a little scrap piece of chipboard. This is relatively light chipboard. It's probably a 1/16 of an inch. It's pretty small. But I think I'm going to sew this in here just to add a little bit of stability into this piece. So I'm going to measure what I need in here with my pencil. So I know I need it. I want it to go, it doesn't have to go all the way to the front edge of the cover, but I want it to be close. And I want to be sure it gets sewn in. So I'm going to try to measure it right up to the edge here. And I'm just going to use my scissors since this is going to be on the inside. Where did I put that other piece? Ooh, ooh. Yeah, wasn't sure if that was my pencil mark or not. Okay, so let me move that out of the way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this piece right in here, and I'm just going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew around these 3 sides. Actually, probably I'll go through the 4th side there too, or maybe I'll just tuck this under. That might be even better. So I'm going to sew all the way around to enclose that piece of cardboard that's in there. But then when I have that in there, when I fold this over, actually I think that's too big because I don't want it to I don't want it to show that little lip that we just had there. So let me cut this down a little bit more. See if I can figure out where my crease was. I think it was about here. Yes, that's where I wanted it. And then I'm going to try to keep, I was thinking I would put the cardboard piece all the way down, but I don't think I want it to, I don't want you to see like the bend of the cardboard, if that makes sense. So I think I'm going to cut it down even more. I think I only want this to be a little bit wider than the snap itself, so that it will hold the snap and then just as wide as the trim, or almost as wide as the trim. Okay, so when I have this folded over here then, like this, we're going to secure that in place, and then I'm going to sew around there. Yeah, and then when this comes over, this part will be reinforced that has the snap on it, but this will remain soft, so that it doesn't show the bend of that cardboard on there. So I like that. I like doing that. Okay, so once I have this right where I want it, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little glue on it and glue it into place, and then I'll go sew around everything. So I'm just gonna measure twice before I do this to make sure this is really what I want it to be, which I think that it is. I think that's a perfect amount of size there. Let me grab my glue. And I'm just gonna put just a little bit on here to hold it in place. My little tack glue. And we'll spread that out just a little bit so it doesn't seep through my trim here. Okay, and I only did it on one side, but that's okay. And yes, I think that's exactly what I want this to be. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this over to the sewing machine. I'm gonna fold this part under so you can't see that. And we'll sew around all 4 edges to keep this right in place right there. And then I'll sew this underneath so that you can't see the edge there. Okay, so I'll be right back after I do that. Okay, all sewn together, and you can see I just kind of re-sewed the edge of the corner here, the back edge of the journal, so that I could make sure that my hem was kind of folded under there. So I have a nice piece of stiff cardboard in here to kind of support my snap, and then this will fold over like this, and we'll put the snap right here. So now I'm going to put the top part of the snap on here, and I'm just going to, because we gave ourselves a little, you know, leeway here, I can just really, what I need to do is just put this in, just make sure I center it on the trim itself, and then, you know, put it wherever I want it. So I think I'm going to put it right here at this little point here. I think that'll be far enough in, and then that will give us enough room to, you know, pull it off and put it back on. So I'm going to, once again, use my crocodile here to punch the hole right in the center on that little triangle tip piece there. And once again, I have some fibers here. I'm just going to try to snip them off as clean as I can so that I can put things through that hole. And so now, just make sure I have this the right way here. So I want the top of my snap on this side. So that's going to go like this. And then we'll put the bottom half here. So now I'm going to use my tool again, but this time I'm going to use the sort of concave portion here, since that fits the top part of the snap. And then very carefully I'm going to center this. I'm going to use my tool and my hammer one more time, give this a couple good bangs, and then hopefully we'll be good to go. Okay, my snap is all done here. And so now I can snap it together. And we have a nice snap cover here. So the last thing that I'm going to kind of go through as, you know, just what I would do to finish this up is I'm going to grab a couple of pieces of cardstock that I have here that I want to cover these sides with. So to finish off the cover, I'm going to add these little side pieces, and I just measured them to go outside of the spine about 1/4 of an inch on either side, and then I'm just going to glue these down once again with my glue, and our cover will be done. And then I also have my signature ready to go, and I'm not going to walk you step by step how to do this since I do this in a lot of my videos, but I'm going to sew this right into the spine, my signature here, right into the spine through the side here. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these down and get my signature in there, and then we'll come back and take a look at the whole thing. All right, my fall journal is complete. You can see here I used some thread to sew in my signature that matches the trim that I used for the cover. I have my snap opening, which I love. And then I went ahead and sewed in my signature. I have some pockets. I added some trim to the page there just to kind of pull things together. And I have all this fun paper in here. That's the middle of my signature. I got some more pockets. I have a little envelope that I paper clipped in here. And that is my fall journal using some Beebeecraft trim. I hope you enjoyed this video, friends. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, I hope that you'll subscribe. I have lots of new projects coming up soon. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, friends. Bye-bye.